All right, so that brings us to the kind of the obvious number one. I think we all would agree that
South Coast Sports Zone.
South Coast Sports Zone is poised.
Rebranded as WEEI, South Coast Sports
No,
Zone.
I
is
think
number one.
yeah, obviously WEEI is, and it's kind of remarkable because radio is not exactly something that I would say is thriving.
No.
I mean, you talk about newspapers taking a hit. Radio, you know, could be dying out even quicker, at least land-based radio. So, you know, the WEI success story has kind of been something great to behold. It just seems like they have such a stranglehold on the consciousness of the sports fan right now. I mean, there's not a sport. If you like sports in New England, you know Michael Hawley's voice, you know Dale Arnold's voice, you know the morning guys. I mean, you know what you're getting there. So the question is, you know, are they making a successful transition to being a news gathering site? Is WEI.com, is it gonna rival Boston.com sports section someday as the best in New England?
I think that the key for them, and it's a really weird construct to have, that the WEI.com website and that radio station under the same name, because they really exist as two completely different things. The WEI radio station is all opinion. It's all inflammatory stuff. It's, entertainment. It's politics in the morning, and it plays to a jocular kind of side. Whereas that website with Rob Bradford and Alex Spear on the Red Sox. They've got Chris Price doing the Bruins now.
Yeah, they got some real
no,
good
they got
guys.
Chris Price doing the Patriots now. I'm sorry, Joe Haggerty's doing the Bruins. They have some very established writers around the region who are breaking stories on that site, especially on the Red Sox side. I mean, I've written about Alex Spear in the past. I mean, he was a freelance guy, who wrote for us at one point.
Yes, he did.
He went up to the Manchester Union Leader and he wrote for them and did some great work up there. He's one of the most up-and-coming talents in New England, and now he's breaking stories for them and he's getting league sources, and they're turning that website into something where people can go there for information and then they can turn on their radio for entertainment to augment it. They're hitting you from all sides.
It just seems like it's a really good mix, and frankly, the look of the site is a little strange, but their kind of their big pop out top of the page stuff is, much more eye catching than 95% of the sites you see, which are kind of cookie cutter to a certain extent. They're going with a different look. They're offering all their interviews online. I mean, they really have. There's a lot there.
There's one great aspect to that WEEI.com website is now these people who they're bringing in to write for that website are now working their way into the radio. And when they're doing that, and then when they're displacing these guys who aren't on the beats, who aren't in the locker rooms, guys who are just watching games at home, going to talk about sports and playing golf for the rest of the day, when they're brushing some of those guys aside and giving Chris Price, Hags, when they're giving these guys a chance, and Rob, of course, all over the place there. But when they're giving them the chance to actually get on there and start talking about this, it means more to the audience member because these people know what they're talking about. These people are there. They're talking to Francona, and they know why Francona is making these decisions instead of somebody else who's saying, well, I think Francona is doing this.
It's a great base, but I think it's, we're going back to the same, similar argument that you would make about like the Boston Globe, but where it's, you get your Bob Ryan and your Shaughnessy, and how does that contrast with your beat guys? I mean, a guy like Michael Hawley in the midday, I mean, he's paid his dues. I mean, Michael Hawley is as well versed about sports and as anybody you're going to hear on the radio.
But everything else on that show is so contrived that it makes it to me irritating to listen to.
Well, okay. I mean, everyone's got their level of tolerance for the shows. I mean, I love Dale and Holly. I can't really listen to more than, say, 15 seconds of the morning show because I just don't. I think
talk about your cup of tea.
Talk about contrived. I think that's contrived. And then you got your afternoon show, the 2 to 6. I mean, say what you want about it, but it's
compelling radio.
It's great. Sometimes I turn it off, but generally it's awesome.
I've never turned off a show on EEI because I didn't want to hear what they were talking about, except for the midday show. And there's times when I will turn it off just because it gets grating to me, the idea of we're bringing in Holly as being this young hip guy, and we're going to pair him with Dale Arnold, who is probably the least hip guy, and we're going to let them kind of play off each other, and that to me gets in the way. Nothing else gets in the way. I mean, I've kind of just accepted Dennis and Callahan for who they are, and I can deal with what they're going to say, so I can listen to Tom Verducci, so I can listen to even Faxon on golf. I don't care about golf, but I'll still listen to what he has to say.
Yeah, I just wish, I wish they sometimes I understand the desire to have that political mix in the morning, because you've got that, obviously. I mean, I'm not going to argue with whatever EEI is doing because it's working, so I just personally don't like to listen to those guys.
I know a number of people that won't listen to the night show. And Cooch, what about yourself? I mean, I'm guessing for somebody who likes the sports talk, like you were talking before with the Sports Hub, you want that national talk. You want somebody who's talking about the sport, something that's just general tomfoolery and Yahooism.
I mean, I'm not a regular sports radio consumer, and that's a lot of people say that it holds no real interest to me, which is why I like EEI.com so much, because it's become something else. Mike Adams is somebody who had a show on New England Cable News when I was, in my teens, called Sports World. A lot of people like it. See, I loved that show. It's 15 years later. He's doing the same show. I don't care anymore. I've moved on from that. Other people haven't. He's on the most established, media outlet in New England. So
number one on my list, Coach.
Maybe I'm in the minority, but it does nothing for me.
Of course, in fairness, it took him 15 years to get that show on radio. Kind of fighting his way up.
Very
there.
true.
So who is if they're the number one force? I mean, I think where you can debate who's your favorite or who's the who's a guy you like. I think everyone would have their different one, but I mean, Glenn Ordway, he's definitely the centerpiece of it, and I tell you what, I've listened to that guy talk about sports for a long time, and he always brings something different to the table. He just seems like he's just the smartest guy in the business as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think if I had a number one pick who's your number one pick of all the New England sports media guys, I would take Ordway number one.
It's hard to disagree.
Just for looks, if nothing else.
I give him begrudging respect. I'm not always what he doesn't do a whole lot for me, but there is no question that he can get an audience and captivate an audience and push the right buttons and get people to listen, which is really in radio all that matters.
So Glenn Ordway and WEEI, we congratulate you. You're number one on our list of most likely to dominate the New England era, the New England whatever it would be called.
Well, owning like 25 stations helps too.
You're going to dominate it. We predict in the future because you're dominating it now. So that's about how forward thinking we are. We picked the guys that are doing the best now.
We're front runners.
We are front runners. So that's that. Congratulations to WEEI.